Hello there everybody, how's it going? It's Jessie from Jessie Marie Does Stuff here on FlossTube, and I am coming to you on this Saturday, July the 13th, 2024, with an update video. So we are about 2 weeks past the behemoth that was my WIP parade, and so it feels like enough time has passed for me to be able to come back and do an update, but also like maybe I shouldn't. But we're here anyway, because I won't be here for at least another 2 weeks, so here we are. Before I get into everything though, welcome everybody. Welcome to both my returning viewers as well as anybody who is new here. Perhaps you're checking out my channel for the first time. Thank you all so much for spending part of your day with me. I so appreciate it. Because my last gigantic video was a WIP parade, there have been some new folks who have subscribed to my channel, and so a special shout out to those of you who are new. Just a real quick introduction into me. My name is Jessie. My internet persona has been Jessie Marie for 15 years or so. I've been on FlossTube since before it was called FlossTube. I started my channel in 2012, 2013, something like that. Over 10 years ago. This year is either my 11th or 12th anniversary, and I can't remember which it is. But I've been here for a really long time. I'm 36. I live with my husband and our, as of yesterday, 3.5-year-old daughter. We live in Virginia, Central Virginia, little north of Richmond. I am a Virginia Tech alum. I graduated in 2010 with my bachelor's in science, in biology specifically. I worked for a while in a research lab and then hit the proverbial ceiling, and so I left to pursue some alternate careers. I have been a stay-at-home wife / stay-at-home mom since about 2016. So that's a quick intro into me. I started stitching, I guess it was 2013 when I started my channel, because I started stitching in 2013 after a fellow book blogger friend talked about her cross stitch and I got interested, and then, you know, the rest is as they say. I haven't stopped stitching since that point, and the WIP parade just exemplifies that. So quick notes about the WIP parade. Thank you so much for everybody who has watched, if not some of it, all of it. I knew it was going to be big. I knew it was going to be long. I did not realize it was going to be like that. I really didn't. I had no idea. And so I finished filming on day 2, and maybe that should have been my first clue. But I finished filming on day 2, and I put all of the raw footage together, and my jaw dropped when I saw that it was over 5 hours of raw footage. Some of it, a lot of it, I carved out, I think, an hour's worth of duplicates footage and whatnot, but even I was like, really? It's really that long? So I was on Sammy J Stitches. She does a couple of live streams a week typically, and I was on one of hers last week, and she was talking about how I tend to give my projects like whole life story. And isn't that the truth? I equated it to, you know, like when you go to look at a recipe online and you get the food blogger's entire life story and you really just want to find the jump to recipe button because you don't care. That's me. As it turns out, I'm one of those. And so thank you to those who enjoyed it and who shared with me that you enjoyed it. I can be long-winded. It's no question about it. The thing is that I know that WIP parades draw new viewers. It's it's just the nature of a WIP parade, right? It just draws new viewers. And so for those who have never seen my projects before, I feel compelled and I feel responsible for talking about all of the things that I have been talking about for nearly 10 years for some of these projects. So anyway, so that's how it ended up to be so crazy long. It's why I can't do an annual WIP parade. It's why I won't do another one for another few years at least. But thank y'all for watching, and I'm so glad that many of you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for those of you who told me how many sessions it took you to watch it. Just so much fun. I am still reading through the comments, and I will pull questions and respond to the comments over the next couple of weeks, because yeah, just wow, thank you all so much for that. WIP parades are so much fun, but the cleanup, not gonna lie, it took a while. It took a while. So we are back again with an update. I have some statistics because we have finished out the month of June, and in doing so, we have the first half of the year's statistics. So I thought I would share those with you for those who are interested. I have the projects that I have worked on since the WIP parade. We're treating the WIP parade as if it was an update because it kind of was. So for the last 2 weeks, I'm going to show you what I have worked on. I have a little talk about plans, some stash, and then I'm going to have a really short segment on books. I have read a few things in the month of July. I've finished a few books in July so far, but it's mostly been like nothing super profound, nothing really all that meaningful. So I'm just going to talk to you about a couple of things that I have read and what I'm currently reading, and we'll be on our way. This shouldn't take too long, but you never know. The thing with my videos, because they do tend to run a little long, I do timestamps. So if you open up the description box below this video, you will find clickable timestamps for each of the segments. So if you want to skip something, feel free, go ahead. So anyway, so let's start off, and we're going to jump right in with these statistics because it makes the most sense. So we're going to start with June. I began the month of June with 94 works in progress. I had a total of 4 new starts in the month of June. Wow. August Quaker by From the Heart Needle Art by Wendy. Beach Rat by The Artsy Housewife. Beauty Spot by Long Dog Samplers. And Within a Dream, also by The Artsy Housewife. So yeah, 4 new starts in June. I had 1 finish in the month of June, and that was July Quaker by From the Heart Needle Art by Wendy. So that finished me out with 97 works in progress at the end of June, which you know because I showed them all in my WIP parade. All except my 1 secret stitch. In June was a low stitching month for me, which is not surprising. I did 16,142 stitches, and I had 4 no stitching days. 3 for travel/illness, 1 for WIP parade editing. I just had 1 day where I just worked on editing. So yeah, so the total stitch count was low for me in the month of June, but it's not surprising at all. I expect that this first part of July has been pretty great, but I'm headed out for travel next week, so we'll see how it all shakes out by the end. I worked on 10 unique projects in June, 3 of which were full coverage. I did 7,544 full coverage stitches in the month of June, which is also very low. 3 unique full coverage projects. That was Personal Sunshine for my monthly section, my stitching on Secret Stitch, which is full coverage, and then I spent a very little amount of time with Snow Castle, which was one of my full coverage WIP Go pieces for the month of June. So yeah, not a lot of full coverage stitching happened in June, and I am certainly having to play catch up now. Getting that far behind on full coverage WIP Go was perhaps not my best choice, but that's okay. We'll see how it all shakes out. The good news is this is low stakes. WIPCO is very low stakes, so not a problem if I don't complete it. Not a big deal. Okay, so let's switch to some some mid-year statistic recaps for you. I began the year with 93 works in progress. I've had 12 new starts and 8 finishes. Some of those finishes have come from the new starts, but I've had a few older WIP finishes. And I finished the first half of the year with 97 WIPs, obviously. In the first half of the year, this is the big one for me. The first half of the year, I did 123,619 stitches. 123,609. What? That's wild. That's a lot. For me, it's a lot. I don't know that I have ever had a first half of the year quite like that. Even my record setting, probably never going to repeat it, 2019, wasn't quite like that in the first half of the year. So that's pretty wild. I have had a total of 10 zero stitch days in the first half of the year, and so I'll take it. It's a little bit more than last year, at this point last year, but that's all right. I mean, that's life. Sometimes we have no stitch days. That's just how it goes. So here's the statistic that I do like, and that is that I have done, in the first half of the year, 79,042 full coverage stitches. I wanted 2024 to be my year of full coverage, where I was making good strides. Maybe not great as far as some projects go, but certainly good strides across my full coverage projects. And 79,000 and change full coverage stitches so far is 2/3 of my total number of stitches for the year at this point. So I'm like, goal is being met. Maybe I'm running behind at this stage. Maybe I won't complete all of the goals, but I am nonetheless putting the emphasis where I wanted to. So that's pretty cool. And through the first half of the year, I worked on 35 unique projects of my 97 total. So, and that includes the finishes. This was not going to be a year where I worked on everything. That was last year. This year is full coverage. And I've been saying that throughout this first half of the year, so that's not exactly surprising. So I'm going to put up here real quickly my stitching WIPCO boards. The first one you're seeing here is full coverage, and I am 2 projects behind. Ravenkin and Snowcastle were called for June, and I haven't met the goals on those. Ravenkin I am still hoping to accomplish this month. Snowcastle will have to be pushed a little bit further because I'm out of time. And then for July, Little Wings and the first rotation on Allison and Dali Dream, those were called for July. So, and I'm hoping to accomplish those and chip away at the backlog, if you will. So that is the full coverage board. And then my non-full coverage board is, there's all kinds of things going on because I have some projects that I have finished before they've been called. The Swans by Cottage Garden Samplings and April Quaker. I am behind on non-full coverage WIPCO. Give Thanks I have yet to work on. Stark House Banner and Give Thanks were my May calls. And I was so focused on full coverage in May that they were abandoned up until now. I have since, and you're going to see it here in just a little bit, accomplished the Stark House Banner goal. And so that one is now checked off. And then called here for the month of July was December Quaker, which I won't get to until I reach that point. I'm stitching them in order, and I'm currently in the midst of August. So I won't get to December until I get to it. That won't be in July here. And then also Mouse House by Mill Hill, which is another one you will see here coming up. So non-full coverage WIPCO, I am almost caught up on. Full coverage WIPCO is going to take some more work. Okay, so those are these statistics. I hope for those of you who like the statistics, that you enjoyed that. I am dumbfounded and flabbergasted by 123,619. That's wild. that is wild. I don't expect this second half of the year to meet that. But you never know. I mean, you just never know what life is going to throw at you. So those are the statistics for June and mid-year. So now let's get into the works in progress. Now let's get into actually showing you some stitching. When last we spoke, when I filmed my WIP parade, I was working on Secret Stitch. And so I don't have that here to show you. So I worked on Secret Stitch all through the end of June. Because between filming and editing and life stuff, I just stuck with that one project. And I didn't end up getting to any of my other end of June plans. That's okay. So July 1st hit and I kept going with Secret Stitch because it was still on the frame. I was still kind of in the groove with working on it. So I knocked out that goal right there at the beginning of the month. Secret Stitch is one of my small monthly goals. My small monthly goal on it is 1,000 stitches. I am doing some setup work, and so for June, July, and August, my goal for that has been 1,500 stitches. So I'm kind of advancing it a little bit faster for reasons. We'll go with that. But so knocked that goal out. I have gone back to my WIP wheel to help me decide what's up next, and it pulled small monthly goals again. And so I created a small monthly goals wheel to further help me decide. I don't want to make any decisions. And thankfully, it chose a favorite. So that lives in this project bag. This is by Stitch and Button. Stitch and Button is Vicky, and a lot of my bags are by her. So in here lives my Ragnarok. This is by Long Dog Samplers. This I never even posted to Instagram. I worked on it for one day, and it was a really, really effective day. It was a really good stitching day. But it usually is with this project. This is on a 40 count Newcastle linen in Sweeney Red by Dames of the Needle. I'm stitching this 1/2 with Anchor 403, Anchor Black. And there goes my needle minder, that's okay. So here is where I am up to at this point. When I filmed my WIP parade and I talked about this piece, I was working on page 2, and I mentioned that I thought I had about 700 or 800 stitches left of page 2. It was like 300. So yeah. So my small monthly goal for Ragnarok here is 500 stitches. But I can never seem to stick to that. Case in point, I did like 900 here in July. Yep. This one it just goes so quick. I don't have to think about color, and it's blocks, but I'm making things like oak leaves and squirrels and acorns and more squirrels and negative space stars. Yeah, this just goes so well. So I finished page 2, so that's pretty cool. Page 2 is done. And then I got started on page 3. The halfway point, the midway point in the horizontal is, it was like right in here. So yeah. And I stitched the border all the way across to the edge of page 3. So cool. I love this piece so very much. So that is my progress on Ragnarok. And so this will be back in August. I've also had the thought of doing like a Long Dog Days of Summer, because summer is forever. So that might be something that I consider for next year, spending some really solid time with my long dogs. Outside of June Dog, because of course I will be playing along with June Dog next year. That is so much fun. Okay, up next, spun the WIP wheel again, and this time it pulled old non-full coverage WIP Go. And so I decided to work on the project that lives in this bag. This is also by Stitch and Button. And in here lives my Stark House banner. Stark House banner is by Lolita Made. Lolita Made is a Russian designer and therefore no longer on Etsy. I didn't want to work on this. I really didn't want to. The whole time I was thinking about putting this on the frame, and while I was even actively putting on the frame, I was like, I'm gonna UFO this thing. I don't know that I really want to stitch this. I don't know that I'm ever gonna frame it. I'm certainly never gonna frame it. You know, we're watching House of the Dragon, and I have some nostalgic love for the Game of Thrones books, but I am feeling some type of way that we don't have Winds of Winter yet, and who knows if we ever will. I don't like how the show ended, etc., etc. So I wasn't sure if I was going to finish this. So I didn't feel like working on this, but I said to myself, Jess, just put it on the frame, do 500 stitches, and call that WIP Go goal complete. And then at that point, decide if you're going to UFO or not. My WIP Go board is, my non-full coverage WIP Go board is meant to be just progress. I have defined progress as 1,500 stitches, but for this one, like, it was no big loss if I didn't reach that. But give it 500 stitches, make that assessment. I did my 1,500, and I think I may try to finish this year. I still don't know that it will ever get framed or fully finished or what have you, but I kind of enjoyed my stitching time with it. So enough jabbering on and on. The fabric is 32 count Belfast linen in Valyrian steel by Hand Dyed Fabrics by Stephanie. It is shown up pretty accurately there. There is some purple tones, especially on this side, and grays, and it is a stunning, stunning linen. I think that her Game of Thrones stuff is still in her regular line, so definitely worth checking out. The thread I'm using is DMC 762. It doesn't look blue there. It always looks white on this fabric, but it is that pale kind of icicle blue. I made a change. I changed the font that I used for the name House Stark, but I've got to fix this because I used long stitches and they look terrible. So I've got to go back and fix that at some point. But I certainly wanted the O to be that iconic Game of Thrones O. So anyway. And so I was working down here. And when I last showed this to you, and you'll see in my before and afters, I was part the way through the direwolf's face, or at least the head of the direwolf. So I pretty much did his face and ear here and almost finished out the direwolf. I have I think 20 stitches left for that last little tuft of hair, but it was tucked down into my frame and I couldn't reach it. So yeah, and then this border, all of this is new. That was what I accomplished. So here's kind of what was the breakthrough moment for me. I did what I do, and I have a tendency of breaking things up into smaller chunks, be it by the year or it just makes sense in my brain to see the smaller picture as I'm working towards the bigger picture, right? So I was working in rows of 10 by 10 blocks, and because I had all of this completed, I was working the direwolf down to this 10 by 10 row, and then I would come over here and do this huge chunk down to the 10 by 10 row, and then these to the 10 by 10 row, and then this sawtooth border that I detest. I make mistakes on that all the time, and it's so simple, and it doesn't matter. I make mistakes on it all the time. but I was working on it in little pieces, and then I would reward myself and go back and work on the dire wolf, which is interesting, and in 10 by 10 rows. And oh man, was that the breakthrough moment for me, to the point where I have taken what I've got left and divided it up by the last 5 months of the year to see this finished in December. So I don't know that I have time for it, but just the practice of breaking it up for me was like an aha moment. It was this is how I'm going to get this done. I do like this piece. I don't know that I'll frame it. I don't know that I'll finish it, but I do like this piece, and I do have fond memories of reading Game of Thrones, and my Aunt Colleen, who passed away this last Christmas, she gave me my first copy of A Game of Thrones. One of my bookish friends got me a copy of Dangerous Women, signed by George R.R. Martin. One of the early days of Danny and I's relationship, he bought me the trade paperback version of one of the Game of Thrones books, I guess, as a surprise. And, you know, we've been together for like 13 years now. So, like, it's been a while since it's been like that. But I have fond memories of Game of Thrones. It's problematic, but... So anyway, so I'm going to finish this one. Finish up the 1500 on Stark House banner. Spin the WIP wheel again. And this time it pulled non-full coverage WIP Go for the month of July. And I only had one that was technically eligible because December Quaker, like I've said, is a holdover until it comes up. And I was so excited. I was so excited to get to work on this. So this is Mouse House. This is a buttons and beads kit by Mill Hill from their autumn series. And I was so excited because I was ready for a finish. And so I worked on this to the finish, and it was a whopping 1,200 stitches. It was so close to the finish, but it is now complete, and I love it so much. So this is a kit that comes with the perforated paper. I started stitching it on the perforated paper and decided that I didn't like it, and so I switched over to fabric, and I had this piece of 28 count cashel in Ale by Picture This Plus, which was pretty close to the brown of the paper, so I thought it was a good even substitute, and was off to the races. This is something that I started in May of 2021, and the kit itself was a gift from Carolina of Crafts Makeup Food. So she was on my mind all the time while I was working on this, and stitchy friends, right? Just absolute gold. So I don't know why I'm getting emotional now. Anyway, so I really enjoyed stitching this, and I raced towards the finish line. I had a good chunk of this section to do. This was more interesting than I expected it to be, and the bottom. But yeah, just like 1,200 stitches, and it was done. Oh, so good. So I didn't mention this beforehand, and I'm not going to go into serious detail at this point, but I made the decision on my most recent birthday. I turned 36 this year, and so I am 4 years from 40, and I love a good number pattern, and so I am aiming for 40 finishes from my projects on the day I turned 36. I'm aiming for 40 finishes from those projects by my 40th birthday. And I can go into more detail about that later. The long story short is that this is my first. This is my first finish in my 40 finishes before 40. Because the finish that I had in June came from was something that I started after my last birthday. So anyway, so there's my first finish for 40 before 40. Yeah, I love it. I really, really love it. And I am kind of perusing the options for a seasonal set because that's what we do, right? Seasonal sets. And so I am perusing to see what summer options I have. I think that's the next one I want to try to do. So that is Mouse House. At this point, my WIP wheel was like, nah, we're going to be avoiding the full coverage. And I was like, okay, it's time. Like, we really got to get on this full coverage, given how far behind on full coverage I am. And it cooperated. My WIP wheel cooperated. And this time it pulled Alice in a Dali Dream by Heaven and Earth Designs. So preview here of what this will look like finished. This is artwork by Jasmine Beckett-Griffith. And I went on a long diatribe when I first started this piece about my love for and my history with Salvador Dali. Surrealism, I'm not gonna lie, it evokes a lot of feelings and a lot of thoughts. And so it's not typically my favorite artistic style or artistic movement, but Dali works are kind of an entity of their own. So anyway, so that project lives in this bag here. This is a project bag by the Brass Button, and she makes fantastic quilted big bags with handles, which is great. And so this was my first rotation with Alice in a Dali Dream, and my goal was to get half of the page done, which was, I think, the equivalent of 3,700 stitches was about what I had to do this month. So I worked on this for 5 days, I think, and I got well beyond the WIP goal in those 5 days. And if you've been following me on Instagram, then it will be news to you that this is off the frame. Because while I was working on this, I very seriously toyed with just stitching this to the page finish. And even now, like a whole day and a half later, I kind of want to go put this back on the frame and work on it to the page finish. I so thoroughly enjoyed working on this. My favorite full coverage pages are those that are a mix of this nonsense background and then a something with maybe confetti, maybe not confetti, but with the way that I stitch, doing some of this and then coming up here and working on background and getting bored just about the time I get to something more interesting. Oh, it was great. It was so much fun. Just so easy to get lost in the stitching, and to lose track of time entirely. Almost entirely. I can't totally lose track of time, but you know what I mean. So yeah, it was great. It was so much fun to work on this. The obelisk on this elephant's back is complete. I left the elephant in a really kind of uncomfortable position, but it's surrealism, so hey. This darker spot here is the elephant's eye. This is the ear here. I'm going to get into the trunk here. We have another leg starting to form here. And this is like nothing as far as this design is concerned. I mean, this is just a blip in this humongous piece. I'm not even to the title of it yet. I mean, not really. I'm not even to Alice yet. I will be by this corner of the page, though. I'm going to get just the top of her head. So good. I cannot wait for this to come back up, because it will for the page finish. I am thrilled to get this page finished. This is 25 count easy grid Lugana from Zweigart. I'm stitching this 1/1 full cross with the called for DMCs. I did make the swap to Anchor Black for the black, which is not a heavily prevalent color in this one. Oh, so much fun. I absolutely toyed with the idea of stitching that to the page finish, but as I've said a few times now, I'm way behind on full coverage, and with travel this month, I just don't foresee being able to catch up or even begin to catch up if I spend extra time with that piece when it's going to come up later in the year, and maybe getting to work on it later in the year will be good for me. So reluctantly, I did stitch a little extra on it because it was still on the frame yesterday morning when I got up. And rather than switch, I just had my morning coffee and stitch with it for just a little bit more. But I did make the switch midway through the day yesterday. So I spun the WIP wheel and it pulled Jane Walker circa 1800 by the Scarlet Letter. And I thought, oh, this will be great. Just a little bit of a break from full coverage for a little bit. My goal on that this month is just like 1,000 stitches if I can swing it. So that would be a really great one to work on at retreat, actually. So since I'm headed to retreat next week, I thought, you know what? No, I'm gonna hold that one over to next week, and see if I can get to it then, because that is not bad retreat stitching. I can usually pick a color and go for a little while and chat with folks while I'm working on that one. So that is gonna hold over until next week. So I made the decision to go with full coverage. And originally I was gonna go with Ravenkin, which is old WIP Go. So WIP Go from June that I needed to catch up on. But yesterday, my daughter, it was her half birthday. It was her 3.5. She turned 3.5 yesterday officially. And so I decided to work on Little Wings, which is something that I am stitching for her, and something that she gets really excited about whenever I work on it. So that lives in this project bag. This is by Be Busy Bags, and I very much adore this piece. And so I'm actively working on it. My WIP Go goal for this one is the page finish, and I'm hoping to be able to do it before I leave on Thursday. And we'll talk about retreat plans here in just a minute. So this is by Heaven and Earth Designs. The artist here is Jeremiah Ketner. Jeremiah Ketner is no longer with HAED. He is with Charting Creations and Thread Geeks if you are looking for Jeremiah Ketner pieces. They don't have the same pieces that HAED did, but we'll see. We'll see what happens with that. But this is a retired chart. And you will have seen in the midst of all of that spiel what this will look like finished. I am in the midst of page 1. I started this in 2022. And I love this piece for how different it is. Just the hot pinks, just immediately into the hot pinks. Something kind of interesting. So this is my third Ketner HAED, and the top left corner, I had to think about my directions there for a second. The top left corner in all three of them have had 550 in the first 10 by 10 block. So that's kind of interesting, just to have 550 be my running theme with Ketner. So yeah, I this morning hit the bottom of the page with my diagonals. So my diagonals are going to start shrinking. And I think I'm going to get to the top of, just the very top of one of the flowers here in the bottom of this page. So I will work on this towards that page finish. This one is mostly background. This swirl is a little bit of interest, but not a lot. This one is fun because the colors are so different, but I'm not into stitching anything yet. So yeah. So that is Little Wings. And that's obviously what I'm currently stitching on. So let's switch gears and talk a little bit about plans. A couple of things that I had planned on that aren't happening. I was talking about doing Tour de France. It is a stitching event. Well, it's a real life event, the Tour de France, that Full Coverage Fanatics has adapted into a stitching event. And so I had toyed with doing summer montage for that, but I got too far behind and it's just too much. It's the long story short. The plate is too full, and adding that to it, it's a no thank you. So before the end of the month, I need to finish this page on Little Wings. I need to do my 5,500 stitches on Personal Sunshine. I owe 3,000 stitches to Ravenkin. I have Summer Sampler, Monthly Quakers, and a big rotation on Touching the Autumn Sky yet to do for my small monthly goals. Something is going to have to get pushed because next weekend is Stitch New Jersey. And so I'm really geeked to head out to retreat. I love Stitch New Jersey. It has been one of my annual retreats since the beginning. Since Stitch New Jersey first got started. So I am geeked to head up to New Jersey next weekend. I'm gonna miss Midsummer Stitch, but I hope that all of you all who are going to Midsummer Stitch, I hope you have so much fun. Anyway, so I know that I'm going to take Jane Walker to potentially work on next weekend. I'm also going to take August Quaker, potentially work on to the finish next weekend. But my first goal, keeping in mind all of those other goals that I just listed, where something is maybe going to have to get pushed, my first goal at Stitch New Jersey is not any of that. I have decided that I'm going to try to finish Farmhouse Christmas. So I don't really have the time, but this project is just so good for retreat stitching because I don't ever want to work on it at home, and it's simple enough that I could get it done while at retreat. I have gotten blocks finished at retreat over the years. I think I finished a block at Stitch New Jersey last year, so I'm gonna try to finish this whole project next weekend. We'll see how it goes. So I have one block left, and that is block 9. And I am hardly into it. Let me see if I can find the right piece of fabric here. It's not that one. I also have the borders to add in on a couple of them, and so that is also some good retreat stitching. Yeah, here it is. So here's where I am with it. I have some of the borders started, and so I'm going to try to tackle this. I think what I've decided is I'm going to do my break it up. This design is, I think, 63 stitches by 63. Yes, 63 stitches square. So I'm going to break it up over the 3 days and try to get it finished over the 3 days. I think that's a pretty solid plan. And then if I get my section done early, I can either continue or I can switch to the other things that I mentioned that I'm going to take along. So yeah, so that's the plan there. I'm stitching these on 32 count Belfast linen in flax from Zweigart. I am using the called for colors, which is a blend of Classic Colorworks and a couple of DMCs. The only exception to that is I don't stitch with overdyed white, so I swapped for DMC 3865 instead of the Classic Colorworks Bamboo. That is the white that they called for. It's not super visible here on camera, but it is in person. No problems there. And so I'm stitching them just in pieces and parts of linen, and I will finish them into individual flat ornaments for my farmhouse window, which is going to be filled and complete for this year and for this Christmas, and I am so excited about it. I already have the spot where it's going to hang. I am so excited. So that is going to be one of the extraneous plans that I don't have time for, but I'm going to make some time for next weekend. So that'll be fun. Okay, and so that kind of takes care of the plans. I have all of those other things yet to work on. I won't film for at least 2 weeks because I'll be at retreat next weekend. And so I will film either the weekend following or even after, which I think we are getting into August at that point. So I'll work on those other things and see what I accomplish before August. And then I have to make some decisions on what my plans are for August, because I love arbitrary August, but I'm so far behind on things. So we'll see. That's a discussion for another day, obviously. Okay, let's switch gears and talk about some stash acquisitions. I have just a little bit here. I have some new project bags. Can't help myself. And a couple of other things. So let's start with a couple of other things. A few months ago, I was the winner of the $50 prize from Semi-Sane Stitchers. They do a monthly focus challenge, and for every 1,000 stitches you do, you gain an entry. So every month they draw winners, and I was the winner a few months ago for the $50 prize, and I was I was beyond. I was so excited. And so I chose 1-2-3 Stitch to be my gift certificate winnings, and I was like so excited. I almost spent it immediately, but I decided to sit on it and to wait. It's okay to wait sometimes, to not let the gift certificate burn a hole in your pocket. But then it did. It did. There was something that I wanted to get to start while I was at StitchCon, and it arrived after StitchCon. And so I wasn't able to start it at StitchCon, obviously. But I thought I would share those with you here. So that was the Blooming Forever Bell Pull by Stitchy Pros. And I love this design. As a fellow girl mom, I get it. She gets it. We get it. In the Garden of Time, our bond will never sever. Mother-daughter love, blooming forever. This is so beautiful, and I cannot wait to stitch it. I was of a mind to start it yesterday because it was Baby Does Stuff's 3.5. But I don't have my fabric chosen quite yet. It calls for ballet slippers by Fox and Rabbit. I know I have a neutral. It's just a matter of deciding which one. Anyway, plus I don't really feel like a new start right now. I'm still not feeling the new starts. So this will probably get started before the end of the year, if not on my daughter's birthday next year. Love this one. Super cute. But I had a $50 gift certificate and one little chart. Cannot travel alone. So I picked up kind of on a whim the 2024 Prairie Schooler Santa, which I think this one looks really cool with the back stitch in the background. I love the idea of stitching an ornament for your kid every year, and so I may do the 21, 22, 23, 24 Santas for her. So starting with the 24. And while I was perusing, I picked up Prairie Birds by Prairie Schooler. I really love this hummingbird one. And the robin. I love them all. Who we kidding? I mean, Yeah, these are really sweet. And since I am averse to smalls, I have to stitch all 10 of them. That's how that works, right? So then I had a little bit left of the gift certificate, and but not a lot. So I went ahead and picked up the silks for White Winter Moth by Kathy Barrick. I wasn't gonna stitch this in the silks. I have the chart, it's buried. I wasn't gonna stitch this in the silks, but after seeing Beck Stitches Everything, her version in the silks, it was a done deal for me. So these are the MPIs called for. I think that's all of them. I don't think there were any that they were out of. I think that's all of them. So that may have to be a winter start, and you'll have seen a picture of what that will look like finished. Beautiful. So that was my my winnings, and so thanks Semi-Sane Stitchers for that. That was so cool. Okay, our last little bit of recent stash acquisitions are some project bags by 4 different makers. So first up, Stitch and Button. I picked up this one. This is featuring fabric from the Roar collection by Tula Pink. And yeah, I love this. In Here Lives My Beauty Spot by Long Dog Samplers. Given the nature aspect of the fabric and the design and also the colors, I thought it was pretty perfect for that. So that's where my beauty spot lives. I mentioned the project bag that I had Beach Rat in. That is a bag by Lynn X Stitch Creates, whose bags are big. They are fantastic, and I love that bag for the piece, but it was way too big for such a small project. And so when Pepper Pot Shop released these, that was kind of a no-brainer. So I did pick up this Beach Rat one from Pepper Pot Shop. So it's a littler bag and much a better size for Beach Rat, just not a very big piece. And then that Lynn X Stitch Creates bag, that's going to go to something a little bit more substantial. And then new to me, but perfect for what houses it. This is from Gamma's Treasures. Yeah, Gamma's Treasures. So it's a vertical bag. It's smaller. It's kind of book sleeve size. But In Here Lives My Within a Dream. Is that not perfect? But wait, it gets better. Isn't this perfect for Within a Dream? I thought it was fantastic, and I really like this print. That's pretty cool. So, yeah, I'm really becoming quite a fan of these vertical bags. I think they're pretty fantastic. So that's what Within a Dream lives in. And then my last project bag is for a future new start, maybe before the end of the year, maybe not until the earlier stages of next year. But this is a project bag by Jasmine's Custom Bags, Genevieve, and she posted these bags and I missed out. I missed out on her first run, and I said, Jen, if you ever get any more of that fabric, you know, hit me up. I would love it. And she said, well, I seem to have enough interest, so I am going to get some more. And so she reserved one for me. This fabric is so beautiful. And so In Here Will Live My Ivory Crow. I mean, obviously those are not crows, but I think the colors and the vibe match Ivory Crow so well. So yeah, love this. And in here is the pink and white check to coordinate. Yeah, this is beautiful. And we all know I love Jen's bags for full coverage. I've talked about it a few times. I don't necessarily need the big bag, but Jen's bags are just so fantastic. So yeah, so that's it for the bags and for the stash for now. Okay, so we're going to switch to our final topic of the day, and that is books. This is going to be a real quick segment. The long story short is that I have been feeling overwhelmed by my Bookish WIP Go board. My Bookish WIP Go board was comprised of 12 books from the 12 Books Reading Challenge, aka 12 books that were recommended to me by friends and Instagram followers at the beginning of the year. And then also on my Bookish WIP board were 12 books from my unread shelf, my physical unread shelf. And I was feeling all types of overwhelm and just undue stress with not being caught up with my Bookish WIP Go. So I dropped it. I am, however, still going to attempt the 12 books reading challenge because I want to. I want to read those books. And I also want to read some of the new books that I have acquired this year. So that's kind of where my head is at with Bookish WIP Go. Done with that. Gonna work on the 12 books reading challenge. So before I get into what I'm currently reading, here's what I have finished so far in July. I read Hawk by Jessie Hall. This was a Kindle Unlimited dark romance, I guess you would call it. I think I gave this one 2 stars. I'll be honest, I am picking up some not great reads from Kindle Unlimited. Okay, 1.5 stars is what I rated Hawk. It was one of the books. Okay, so I took to Instagram lately and I mentioned that I was seeking a spicy romance that was well written, because the book that I was reading at that time, the spice was pretty decent, but it was making me roll my eyes so much I was getting a headache. And that happened to be Hawk by Jessie Hall. And I had a couple of folks who recommended Hawk to me, and so my apologies. But that one, not for me. It read very young. Like the characters were meant to be in their, I think, early to mid 20s, and they read like 17-year-olds. On top of that, it features a trope that I don't like, and that is cheating. I don't like cheating, and I don't like a positive spin on recreational drug use. And in this one, it goes as far as ecstasy, and I'm not interested. I don't know if it's because I am like at least 10 years older than these characters are meant to be, or if I am at least 10 years older than the author, but it just read so very young, and I just didn't work for me. The 1.5 stars is for the semi-decent spice scenes, but even that, they weren't anything new. I then randomly decided to read an extreme horror novel. I read Vacationers by Crowley Barnes. It's extreme horror, and so I'm not going to talk about it because that's a very niche thing. If you're interested in extreme horror, check it out. I rated it 1 star because it was not for me. Turns out I'm not an extreme horror reader. Curious, but not for me. And then I read very quickly King of Wrath by Anna Huang. So this is one of the books that was recommended to me while I was seeking well-written spicy books. The King of Sins series, and specifically by Anna Huang. She also has the Twisted Something series, which is her older series. The King of Sins is more recent, and it's not a complete series at this point. So I rated this first one 3 stars. Originally, I rated it 4 stars, but I knocked it down because I didn't like the ending very much. Upon further thought, I was just a little bit left wanting better for the ending. I don't know if this is anybody else's experience, and so chime in if you have read King of Wrath by Anna Huang. I got Beauty and the Beast. I got very much a Beauty and the Beast retelling. And And maybe that's why the ending didn't sit well with me, because the ending isn't very Beauty and the Beast. But the setup, there's even a scene in a library that like it just read very Beauty and the Beast to me. The spice was all right. I don't know why I'm expecting something to be profound and interesting with spicy books. There's only so much you can do. But it wasn't bad. And I felt like the characters were grown-ups in this one, so there was that. There was a little bit too much, it was a little bit too neat. It was a little bit too tied up with a bow at the end. So yeah, I liked it. 3 stars, 3.5, maybe if I'm feeling generous, depending on the day. So yeah, I'm not really finding the diamonds in the rough as far as Kindle Unlimited is concerned. And maybe that's the point. So anyway, so there's that. Okay, so let's get into what I'm currently reading. I have 3 books on the go. Pretty much at all times I have 3 books on the go. I am usually reading a fantasy in physical, so paperback or hardback, that I read during Baby Does Stuff's quiet time. Can't really call it nap time anymore. But during her quiet time, sometimes I will read in the afternoons. Sometimes I will read in the mornings, have my coffee and read in the mornings. So that's my physical book. That's usually fantasy. It's usually something that requires more mental focus, be it a complicated plot line or complicated characters or complicated world building. That's usually where my physical book attention is. I then have an audiobook, and the genre ranges wildly, that I listen to while I'm stitching sometimes. If I'm not in the mood for watching FlossTube and I just kind of want to put something in my ears, I usually have an audiobook. And then I have an ebook that I read in those few minutes before I fall asleep. It's like the worst time for me to try to read fantasy because I'm dozing. And reading on my Kindle, I can turn the lights off and start the fan and get comfy and read my Kindle. And so that is typically a romance. Spicy or not, that's usually when I'm reading something that's easy to pick up and put down. So my current physical read, and has been for months, is Written and Read by Anne Bishop. I am so enjoying this book, but I haven't made the time for it, and so I haven't finished it yet. I'm like 150 pages from the end, and I'm hoping to be able to finish that this weekend, maybe the first couple of days of the week, in the coming week. That is urban fantasy written for adults. It is fantastic so far. I have wanted to read it for years, and I have been reading it for months. So that is my current physical read. My current audiobook is the next book on the 12 Books Reading Challenge, and that is The Librarian of Crooked Lane by C.J. Archer. And so far, this has got, I didn't read a synopsis or anything before going into this. I just picked it up because it's the next one in my 12 Books Reading Challenge. And so far it is historical fiction with some magical realism in there. Maybe it's going to get more fantastical and more legitimately fantastic rather than magic realism. So we'll see. So far, that is a fantastic audiobook. The narrator is awesome. And then my ebook currently, I just started it last night, so I'm just barely into it. I have no thoughts really at this point. I seem to be striking out with the hetero romances on Kindle Unlimited, so let's try something else. And so I found a sapphic romantasy. And so this is A Game of Hearts and Heist by Ruby Rowe. It's that classic fantasy title, A Blank of Blank and Blank. So this is A Game of Hearts and Heist. So yeah, barely into it. The leads are one woman is an assassin and the other woman is a poisoner. It's starting out to read maybe new adult at best. We'll see where it goes. So that's what I'm currently reading. I would really like to get Written and Read finished up because I am participating in Michelle of Cozy Eggs book club, and our first book chat is in less than 2 weeks, and I have yet to read The Familiar by Leigh Bardugo. So I need to get on this. I have a feeling that I am going to very much enjoy this. On BookTube and on Book Talk, I see people doing their 5-star predictions, and I would hazard that this may be a 5-star prediction for me. So I'm really excited to get into this, and see how it goes. But that is on the docket for a discussion at a later date. So I'm looking around, and I'm not really seeing anything else that I wanted to share with you. This is turning out to be considerably longer than I expected, which maybe shouldn't be much of a surprise, but it is nonetheless. But those are the books that I'm reading and the stitching that I've done. As I said, I am headed to Stitch, New Jersey next weekend, so if I will see you there, please come and say hi. I will have another 50 WIP Go needle minders to hand out to folks, so if you're playing WIP Go, please come and visit, and I will give one to you. So I'm really geeked. I love Stitch New Jersey, as I've mentioned. Something I meant to mention earlier, I will not be at Stitch New Jersey next year because I got into the Queen City Chatelaine retreat, which is taking place in July next year, and I'm so excited. I am so geeked for a weekend of chatelaine stitching and just being with like-minded folks. The conversations have started, and it looks like a bunch of people are looking forward to starting their first chatelaines, and I'm just so excited. And it's making me want to work on my chatelaines, of course. But I'm geeked. But anyway, so if I'm gonna see you next weekend, please come say hi. And so I'm gonna head off and wish you all happy stitching. As always, be kind. I'll see you in the next one. Couple weeks. Bye, y'all.